Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the 6-5 podcast, an insider edition, live today around some big news that happened this week at IBM. I'm joined by my always esteemed colleague and co-host, Mr. Patrick Moorhead.
Daniel,
Pat,
how are you?
How are you?
I'm doing much better than you have to be. I mean, I wasn't in Spain last week. I'm doing great.
Yeah, everybody says that, but I've slept at night. I'm not jet lagged. I am feeling good. I came right back in it. We've had events this week. We've had earnings this week, and we've had some big news this week.
Oh, yeah.
With IBM finalizing its spinoff of Kyndryl, a spinoff of its managed infrastructure services business, which is now called Kyndryl. And we've got a great episode because we're going to have the chance to have one of IBM's top executives, Mr. Bob Lord, SVP of Worldwide Ecosystem, join us here on the show. So Insider Edition, Pat, live edition, Pat, and right behind the news, we have had the chance to talk to some of the top folks at IBM.
That's right. Let's bring in Bob. There he is. How are you, Bob?
Hey, great, guys. Thanks for having me on. How are you today?
Great. Exciting day for IBM.
Oh, my God. It's fantastic. You know, it's the spin is just another moment in time for us to continue our path and leadership in the hybrid cloud and AI company. So the place is abuzz right now.
That'd be great. So, hey, maybe a great place to start is introductions. I know all of our guests can see your SVP of Worldwide Ecosystem. Can you talk a little bit about what that role is at IBM?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think the most important, there's a couple of fundamental issues that are happening around IBM. And as we sort of positioned ourselves after the Red Hat acquisition as a platform company, activating on the ecosystem was a key pillar of that. Arvind Krishna, who is our CEO, asked me to take on the remit of really activating our ecosystem at scale. So my job in the last 18 months has been going out and working with partners to educate them about where we were going to be, who we are and what we're about, and how they actually can bring our software and our consulting practices out into this ecosystem to benefit their clients.
Yeah, it's a big job, and this has been something we've been following very closely. Had a number of conversations. We've been talking about it both publicly, privately, behind the scenes, with press, with equities folks and analysts. Everybody's kind of wondering what's going on, and we've been really blessed to have so much access across IBM to be able to hear. In fact, just recently, I was at Best of Breed conference, and I even had a chance to chat with Arvind a little bit. And so right before this happened, so there is so much, that we can definitely cover today. Now, just quickly, Bob, and you're sitting here, and we're about to hammer you with 3 or 4 questions that we think everybody wants to know. But before, I do want to do this just, in the good spirits of disclosure. For everybody out there that does watch the 6-5 podcast and the Insider Editions, this show is for information and entertainment purposes only. And while we are talking to executives from publicly traded companies and about publicly traded companies, please do not take anything we're going to say today here as investment advice. Now, Pat, I think with me saying that, you have carte blanche to ask the first question.
Ooh, I get the first one. No. This is great. So, Bob, it's deal's finally done. It's been a while since the deal was originally announced, and I think the audience would love a little bit of a background to the strategy around the spinoff, the reason for it, and how it fits overall in the go-forward plans of IBM.
Yeah, so let's just start. We'll just start with the basics, and I maybe highlighted that at the beginning of the talk here. It is a significant evolution of our drive to continue our leadership in a hybrid and develop a hybrid cloud and AI company. It began with the acquisition of Red Hat, and now it's capped off, I think, today with the Kyndryl spin. What that's allowed us to do is to have a very focused portfolio of a technology platform and a consulting organization. And it's now shifted. 70% of our revenue will come from software and consulting. And Red Hat is growing, and the infrastructure remains a core piece of that whole foundational layer for us. So if from a strategic standpoint, the focus lens that we have and what we have in market is enabling our clients and our partners to actually grow and upgrade their infrastructure and their enterprise at scale in places that need the transformation skills that they have and the technology that they have. So at the end of the day, we'll deliver single-digit growth starting in 2022. There's been 17 acquisitions under Arvind's leadership. We're going to generate a strong free cash flow. We are now reporting in new segments. They're simplified. There's IBM Consulting, IBM Software, and IBM Infrastructure around sort of the overall strategy. But the essence, it's a simpler, much clearer strategy around our software technology and our consulting practice and our infrastructure practice.
Yeah, it was a really encouraging, and I listened pretty closely on Investor Day, and once I was able to fully comprehend the changes, I really appreciated them. One of the things you'll hear Pat and I, and we do this show often, and we talk about earnings, and it constantly irritates us how hard it is to sort of read between the lines when companies are reporting. But at the same time, one of the challenges with something like cloud has been, for the longest time, we've wanted to measure things like IaaS independently, as if that is the only thing that is cloud. And as we are seeing, it's really becoming this amalgamation of infrastructure, of platform, of software, of course, a ton of different services that need to be layered upon them in order to understand. And by the way, you can be a really big cloud company and not do infrastructure at all. So it's, so that's one of those things, though, that I think became more clear and more evident, was that IBM wants everyone to know it's a big player in cloud, but wants to sort of change the whole dialogue around how that is formed. Now, one of the things,
Dan, one of the things, just to emphasize that point, I mean, one of the things I think we've heard from our clients is their infrastructure has basically, over the last 5 years, been sort of bifurcated into multiple cloud regions, right? And they're not connected. So, and they really they're starting to lose control of where their data sits, where their applications sit. So one of the magics of actually acquiring Red Hat and actually creating a foundational layer, so that our enterprise clients can really put an enterprise structure in place to manage a multi-cloud environment in a hybrid cloud world that includes on-prem as well as hyperscalers. That's key to the solve and what we're solving for our clients going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, the one thing and the adder I want to put in too, Bob, sorry for interrupting you, Daniel, is the cloud is different, not only from it being IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, but also the future is very much hybrid. Yes. And as an analyst firm, we celebrated our 10th anniversary yesterday. It wasn't a lot of fanfare. I just went to work with a shovel, and essentially, we took the risk that said 10 years ago that the future was going to be hybrid cloud. And there were very few believers then. We may have got on the wrong horse, which was OpenStack. But as we know, whether it's serverless or whether it's containers or whatever, the future of the cloud is very much hybrid, with 75% of the data and the application still there. And we're over 10 years into the cloud. And sorry, Daniel, to interrupt you.
No, just to build on that point, though, look, we have more than 3,500 companies that are using a hybrid cloud platform today. Yeah. And it's there to help them transform their businesses easily and securely, which is probably the most important thing in a hybrid cloud world, right? If you only go with one infrastructure, you could potentially expose yourself from a security standpoint, which is a very, very critical thing right now to keep business continuity going on. And you look at telcos like Verizon, who are built on cloud-based networks that need a hybrid cloud environment, banks such as Citibanks that are using our AI applications, or services firms such as EY that are basically using a hybrid cloud environment and an AI-powered software to reduce the time it takes to do due diligence in M&A. So there's a whole host of solutions and use cases that this hybrid cloud environment can support, as well as if you've invested in hyperscalers in the past, you can actually take that investment and not throw it away, but bring it into a hybrid cloud environment. And Red Hat OpenShift is that common layer that goes forward on it. So I think you're absolutely right. I think that's where the world is going to. And remember, we've only gotten this far into this cloud journey.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. There's a whole bunch of workloads and applications that need to be modernized that haven't even touched the cloud.
That's really interesting that you bring that up because we spent a lot of time debating the market shares. But one of the things I always kind of say is the TAM is expanding so rapidly that even with a small percentage of what the ultimate TAM is, and that's why I said like it's sort of this big C, little c. It's all the things that that comprise the cloud, not just IaaS. The opportunity is really, really significant. And by the way, Arvind had done a very good job even prior to the spinoff of communicating the importance that software and hybrid cloud had. But I do agree that creating less confusion, and then of course taking a portion of the business that has almost made it impossible to grow at times just based upon the size against total revenue and the fact that it had been so flat or slightly down at times. It just made it hard, kind of like cyclicality of certain systems products. It just makes it hard when those products are late cycle. It will make the opportunity to achieve that consistent growth that the market's asking for just more realistic where you sit today. Bob, you said something earlier about client expectations, so I'd like to lean into that a little bit more. Across the board, what do you think clients should expect from IBM post spinoff now that this deal is done?
Yeah, well, look, I think you hit on it a little bit. The first thing is we've increased our focus in general at IBM to serve our clients better. We have a much more simplified go-to-market model now, right? And as we talked about before, our offering, our software stack, our infrastructure stack, and our consulting offerings are very, very laser focused on transformation from an enterprise standpoint. So that clarity for our clients about who IBM is, what we stand for, and who we are, and how we can help them transform into the future is very clear. Because Kyndryl had its own use case, which was it complemented, but it sometimes confused the story, right? So that allows a lot more decision making to be done, a lot easier across the company, and how we can get deals done with our clients. So we help clients navigate basically the complexity of these mostly, big enterprise industries and highly regulated industries where there's lots of confusion and lots of complexity. I think one of the big insights we had probably about 18 months ago was that our clients today probably have 5, 6 different cloud environments, public cloud environments that they're trying to operate against, right? And you start to lose control of the operations itself because you're hosting in public cloud environments. You've got to bring that control back in if you are the CEO or the CTO, and we allow them to do that. So we're gonna provide a better open, give clients, I would say, more choice to better harness cloud and AI with security and compliance across multiple platforms. And when I say multiple platforms, I mean on-prem as all the way up into hyperscalers, right? Because there's lots of different flavors along that journey. And quite honestly, dependent on the compute or the workload that you need, depends on where you want to run that application. Because sometimes you're going to want it on-prem because it's probably the most efficient, or you have a lot more data security requirements around that. Or if it's for a customer application, like a very light application, you may want it in a public cloud environment because it can scale very quickly for you, up and down. I mean, we're working with clients to really look at their overall application landscape. And we're figuring out, of those monolithic applications that they've had in place for many, many years that are doing their job, how do you break them down in their components? How do you modernize those applications through Red Hat OpenShift and our Cloud Pak strategy? And then where do they reside? Where is the best place for them to reside? Because when you can actually break down those monolithic applications, you become much more efficient and you become much more docile to your clients and your customers, what we need to get to.
Yeah, Bob. I like to look at gear theory, and I didn't create that from a strategic point of view, but it's really important inside of what tech companies, just major companies, that different gears, the size of the gear and the speed of the gear are the same. And over time, the market that Kyndryl served was different from the markets that IBM is looking to serve. And not that there's not, going to be some connective tissue. There will be, but I think it's important. Automation is super important to Kyndryl customers at this point. I think a different IBM go forward customers, there's a different expectation for the rate of innovation, the type of innovation that moves forward. So I do see a benefit to Kyndryl customers, and I see benefit to IBM customers.
Yeah, 100%. Look, on top of the hybrid cloud model, right? Our AI solutions are helping clients, quite honestly, pioneer new ways of doing business, right? It's fundamental to their core. So if you have a hybrid cloud environment and you layer on top, you have access to data in ways that you never would have had before. Therefore, you can apply AI methodologies on top of that, and they can start doing business in ways that they've never done, right? We built an AI-powered assistant to help CVS deal with the massive influx of calls around COVID vaccines recently, very quickly. You can imagine, right? Because they were on that kind of infrastructure where we could do that. So I think you're right. This is about providing tools to our clients that will allow them to do business much differently than they do it today.
No, I love that. That's good way to summarize it. So IBM has this massive partnership ecosystem, channel partners, very tight SI relationships. It's big. IBM is very much a channel company. What does this mean to them?
Yeah, look, I think it only accelerates sort of our strategy. And you hear Arvind talk a lot about, number one, our simplification of our portfolio, our consulting practice, but he also talks about the importance of our ecosystem. Now, if you just fundamentally go back and say, look, we've simplified our software stack, we've simplified our platform. In order to get scale, you need to activate the ecosystem at scale. So the first place we're going to go is to the incumbent partners that we have, right? To fuel our hybrid cloud and AI strategy, right? Then we're going to go to strong partnerships like the Salesforces, the Adobes, the Palantirs, the Verizons of the world, and educate them about what we have so that we can get some flywheel effect there. So when they actually build systems and they go to market, we can go there. We can actually then start going after this $1 trillion cloud marketplace that's out there by co-creating solutions with our ecosystem partners. And what I have experienced in the last 18 months is there is a very welcoming set of arms to actually figure out how they capture their share of this hybrid cloud market. And we, as IBM, enable them to go out with confidence, with software products, with infrastructure products, and some consulting services, so they're confident to go in and get their share of this this marketplace. I mean, it has been, I have to say, like a watershed moment for me, because all of our global systems integrators and our partnerships now with Microsoft and Amazon are really accelerating the growth of what we talk about and how we talk about hybrid cloud. It's our intent is clearly to put the client first, and if they prefer that a workload goes on Amazon or Microsoft or IBM or or even on-prem, we intend to give them that kind of flexibility, and that's the work around the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's super interesting. You mentioned that because obviously in the future, it's probably going to land in all those places. A lot of workloads will. And of course, that's the acceleration and that's the pivot we're seeing.
One more point, just one more point on that, because I think what's so awesome for this, right, is the clients benefit from this open hybrid cloud platform, and they have no vendor lock-in, right? Because at that point, when you actually spread your infrastructure out, you have the ability to go across multiple infrastructures over time. So you don't get locked into one provider of service around infrastructure. Sorry.
No, it's great. It's been one of the great sort of debates has been around all the talk about right workload, right place, all those. But is it really been designed that way? Because so many of the folks that have been designing it, or shall I say companies, have a reason to prefer where a specific workload lands. Of course, IBM, also has an IS offering, but Red Hat really has been built on, not caring. They want the right workload in the right place, and so being able to really lean into that and turn that screw and win the ultimate confidence in the market. And of course, your customer track record and their, the Red Hat customer track record does validate that. Now, I think a great way to tie this all together here is kind of on pulling some threads and trying to pull some threads and connect dots. So we've talked about partner, we've talked about ecosystem, we've talked about client, we've talked a little bit about the overall strategy here, but let's tie it all together. So, we've got these different buckets, but really what we've got is a platform strategy. The company's going to be software, it's going to be infrastructure, it's going to be consulting, and of course, it's going to be research. How do you connect these dots? If an investor or a stakeholder, an employee of the company it's wondering about what things are going to look like going forward, how can you connect these dots and make sure that all these stakeholders really understand the value and understand that growth is the outcome that is expected going forward?
Yeah, look, I think we've talked about it at different stages during the talk, but what continues, I believe, to set us apart is our unique ability to take all these different pieces in technology, whether it's the hardware, the software, the services, or ecosystem partners coming in, and bring it all together for the client to provide long-lasting, I would say, value to their clients, if it's an ecosystem partner, and quite honestly, help them solve these problems that they're up against right now. And as well as, in a lot of instances, our consulting environment is actually helping to retrain their developers in this new way of software development. So it's all about, mission critical applications, getting to any cloud, maintaining trust with our clients, giving them security in this new environments that we're going. I know we're uniquely positioned to be able to serve in that role for some of our largest enterprise clients going forward.
Yeah, Bob, you certainly have the ingredients on the table, and quite frankly, the boldest move that the company has probably made in 10 years was the Red Hat acquisition. And yeah, I think Daniel put it great when he talked about, you want it on-prem cloud, you want it in the public cloud, and that's not even necessarily IBM cloud. You could, but you could also put it in Amazon's cloud and with Red Hat. It's really meeting customers where they are, and now it's execution time for IBM. And I think it's important for the market. It's important that you are successful in this journey, and not just for IBM, but for the clients that you do support. Critical infrastructure, some of the largest financial institutions on the planet. Multiple governments. I mean, the amount of transactions that get run on IBM, quite frankly, is staggering, and people forget that.
Yeah, look, and the green shoots are coming, right? We just launched a data product with Deloitte called Dapper. It's an AI-enabled, managed analytics solution for their clients. Atos, we announced a center of excellence around digital transformation. SAP tends to onboard applications for our financial services clients. So EY, we've set up a partnership. So you're starting to see the green shoots of the ecosystem responding, right? And ultimately, as we respond and then the ecosystem responds, our clients are going to benefit from this.
For sure.
We're much more, we're a different company. We're more strategically focused. We're more technology capable. And I would suggest we're probably more financially sound now of what we can do. So the growth opportunity comes from software and services that runs on top of this hybrid cloud platform. And it's a really exciting moment for us.
And Bob, if we're about time here to wrap up, but if I could say one thing that I think is going to have a big impact on markets, it's going to be focus. I think IBM was at a juncture where it was so big, it had its hands in so many things. And this more focused approach, I think, provides a certain level of confidence. And when you look at how a company's valued, especially with forward earnings, are you valued for software? Are you valued for cloud? Are you valued as a systems integrator, as a consulting firm? And each of those comes with its own type of valuation, and some are much more lucrative than others. So with what Arvind's been saying, and saying the focus is the hybrid cloud and the AI, and software, those valuations will be much better than how the market's treated you historically, if, of course, as to what Pat said, you are able to execute and prove emphatically that that is what you will now be.
Look, the amount of energy and momentum that Arvind has allowed us to create through focus, to your point, has been amazing. And IBM has unlocked problem solving, power in business and science for many, many years, right? Through partnerships. But this focused energy of what we're going to deliver to the world and ultimately to society, right? We're going to impact businesses that impact society, is so crystal clear to all of us. And this momentum, and like I said, the green shoots from the ecosystem is just evidence, right? That this is real and we're moving on it. So we're incredibly excited about this and where we're headed.
Bob, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Such a big day for IBM, and a lot of the ex-IBMers at Kyndryl get a new start, new focus start. Thank you for coming on the 6-5 Insider, and we hope you can do it again sometime.
Would love to. Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks. So I got to tell you, that was a great interview, Daniel. I love now, and not just because I said it before, but I love the whole gear theory, right? You can imagine inside a company like IBM with different focuses, and when one part of the company has a different gear shape, size, speed, and momentum, and an investment portfolio, it actually, in a way, holds back some of the growth, the bigger growth areas. And that's exactly what IBM is doing here. And, we saw a couple other companies spin their company like this off, right? We saw, two infrastructure companies do that a few years back, and IBM is doing it now.
Yeah, I think it's an important move made at an important time. People want to be excited about growth, and the company, I think, is being very realistic. They're not setting expectations that are unachievable, and they're associating the business with those right swim lanes that are more growth oriented and, of course, create more excitement within both the investment community and, of course, the stakeholders. Like I said, the partners, the clients, the employees themselves, and all those things are going to be really important. Of course, you and I, as analysts, as analysts in independent firms, we're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to assess it. We're going to have to come back to this and circle back and say, are they doing it? But indications are there. I've increasingly become more confident with Arvind and his leadership. Red Hat's results have been very strong, and it is really the time now for Red Hat, and that's something I'm emphatic about. But Pat, really, really great episode.
Yeah, so I just want to thank everybody who tuned in live, and if you're on the pod, the audio pod, you know where to give us feedback, good feedback to me, criticism to Daniel. You know how this works. But thanks for tuning in, and have a great